We still don't know if they're going to ban the tush push. And if they do, that is significantly damaging to this team. Again, like, I take nothing away from the Eagles whatsoever in that regard. They earned it, and they perfected it in a way no team has been able to duplicate. But it has been an incredibly valuable weapon for them that now, I thought going into the owners' meetings, there was no chance it was going to get banned. The fact that the reporting is they had around 16 votes, you need 24.
It got tabled, right?
Right, and so the fact that
tabled means they just want to pass it when nobody else is around.
Right, and so that's what if they were fine with it being around for next year and there's 16 votes for it, which means it's going to stay, they would have just voted. The fact that they tabled it and said, actually, let's try to whip some more votes means the league, I think, doesn't want this thing around, which means it's probably going away.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I want to talk about this a little bit more deeply. And I have someone in the comments who wrote something as to why he thinks it's going to be banned that I wanted to discuss. Because I agree that the NFL clearly does want it banned, and that's why they tabled it and all of that. And so if the NFL wants it banned, it seems like they're going to try to find a way to get it banned. And that's what a lot of the reporting has said. Diana Rossini, Albert Breer, like, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, first, it's not going to be devastating for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that's completely overblown. Will they have to change and adjust? Absolutely. But this whole idea that it was like the tush push has been like the foundation to how the Eagles have been successful is just it's just kind of absurd. Did you see the throw that Jalen Hurts made on the fourth down, on 4th and 3 on the opening drive against the Kansas City Chiefs defense in the Super Bowl? Okay, so like they know how to go for it on 4th down without tush pushes. Okay, so it's just that whole thing is kind of being overblown. Not to mention on 4th and 1s and whatnot, they'll still have quarterback sneaks. Jalen Hurts is still a monster, and so is that O-line. So I'm pretty sure they'll find a way. Not to mention the Eagles have consistently been quite innovative and quite ahead of the game with that type of stuff. But I did want to talk about and break down a little bit further as to why it could potentially be banned. And I'm not saying that this is 100% my view. I really wanted to read this rundown, and like I said, it's from someone who I know to be incredibly smart, very intelligent. So even if you disagree with him, I would still encourage you all to at least give it a second thought, a second glance. I'm a firm believer, especially when someone is really smart and they have a view that if it's differing from yours, it's still worth it to be like, like let me try to figure out, like let me try to drill down on this a little bit more deeply. So let's bring it. No, this one first. Okay. Before anything else is discussed, what is the worst case scenario of any given play that we could reasonably expect to ever happen? As in, without saying a meteor hits the field, what is the realistic worst case? Most plays can get pretty bad because there can be a pileup, but they can't stop pileups from happening. The best way they could do against that is penalize every player involved. Now imagine a pileup that is coordinated and constructed as a play such that our team piles up on purpose and generates as much force as can be. What is the worst case scenario of that particular play? Forget about the odds of the worst case scenario happening because you already admitted it was realistic. It could happen eventually over the years, even once, right? To determine how bad it could be, we need to quantify the amount of force generated by the push. I asked Google's AI to determine that force and does not even have a guess. I can tell you that a tackle typically hits with about 1,600 pounds of force, which is about 180 G. Now, depending on, I've read different things. Sometimes it's 30 to 60. Sometimes it's more than that. So, I don't know 100% what the final number, is with some of this type of stuff. You're at least adding that together 11 times over, and you could even be magnifying that force radically or exponentially. It's fair to estimate that total force of a of a tush push around 17,600 pounds of force. Well, that is about what a really big elephant weighs. But we're not done because the other team at least attempts to push back just as hard. So it's like two elephants wrestling with their tusks. Any structural weakness, any weak link that could hold up against the force of those elephants snaps like a twig. If a person loses footing at the wrong time, accidentally overextends their neck or back, basically, if they're slightly out of position, they become the weakest link in a chain that can no longer hold. So the worst case scenario is a gruesome, horrific, blood and traumatizing, and they can't have that on national television, even if it's not very likely. It is likely enough to happen once, ever. That's enough to ban it forever. Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. The chance to die during a tush push is definitely much higher than the chance to die during any other play that can be called. It does not matter if the chance can get it does not matter if the chance to get typical injuries is low, because there is simply too high of a chance of death anyway. Then it's just, that's a little repeat. Then the last line is, and of course, the executives want to save that one life, but even more so, they'd rather not traumatize their audience and lose every single advertiser they got in an instant. Now listen, I think there's a fair bit of truth to what he's saying, but I think it's a lot more complicated than that, because I know some other people are going to say, well, there's no injury data to suggest that it's not more dangerous. And I think that's totally fair. But like, kind of his whole thing is saying is like, yeah, listen, you might not get injured, on this play regularly or even at a high volume, but the reality is that the worst case scenario in a play like this is theoretically just more likely to happen than another more casual football play, which again, it's hard to 100% quantify that, but if we're taking that as a true statement, it's like, okay. My issue with all of this is that the NFL, if they truly believed, if this is truly why they wanted to ban the play, like, that would be the selling point. That would be the selling point that disarms every single counter argument. I made all my tush push videos and I was like, this is ridiculous, this is nonsense, etc., and I kept pushing back. But the one thing that could immediately disarm me, if you're like, listen, this play, although no one's gotten injured yet, the reality is that when someone does get injured, it's going to be so awful, so debilitating, that it's going to make you feel guilty for ever watching a football game, ever again. And it's just like, that would make the players not want to use. We know the players care about safety a ton now. Some of them are wearing the Guardian caps or whatever it's called. Like players care. If you go up to Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and all these players and say, yo, I know you guys haven't got injured yet, but like, look, let me explain to you just how gruesome this truly can get. Like, you would even get a lot of players who are kind of like, yeah, I no longer really necessarily want to do this. And you would get coaches, like, you would get fans on board. You could convince people very easily, like, hey, this is actually an insanely dangerous play, more so than I think people realize. We do need to get this out of it. But that's not the conversation that's being had. Like, that's the thing. You're hearing people say, oh, it's not a football play, it's boring, it's too automatic, it's a cheat code, it's technically against the rules. And when they talk about, oh, we think it's, there's injury risk, but then they don't really provide like anything of substance. Like, if they really believe, like, everything that the guy wrote in the comment section, if all of that was 100% accurate and what the NFL and why the NFL wanted it to be banned, that is the talking points. That is the talking points that they would give out to, FS1, ESPN, NBC, MTV, VH, they'd be giving it out to everyone. They would say, like, this is the problem. This is so insanely dangerous. We have to get this out of here. Like, this is so much more dangerous than anyone realizes. And that's just not the conversation that's being had. But I am always for making the game safer. I am so happy watching football that is different from like 1994. You know, like, you don't get me wrong, you watch some of those highlights and you're just like, oh my God, that is ferocious, that is intense. But it's like uncomfortable to watch when you look at some, Eagles fans, when you look at some of the hits that, Brian Dawkins, unleashed. It's just, you're just like, like it's such a Philly thing, right? These hard hits. And like, I personally, not to go full sarcastic ball, like I'm happy that the game has become safer. I'm happy that these players get to just like, once they retire, they go on and can live, just a semblance of a normal life and not just be, withering away. That is what I personally want to see. I watched that Jason Kelsey documentary, and like, it is tough, when you see him, like, he's like struggling just to like sit down. He's got a bunch of like cute little girls running around, his little babies essentially, and he's like, he can't even like get down on the ground, like his whole body hurts. And then I think it was Brent Selleck or someone else, when they were like around the fire, they were like had been like a fire or whatever, and they were just like talking about all the injuries that they have, and even Travis Kelsey, not in the documentary, but Travis Kelsey came out last year with a quote pretty much saying like, I've had like 10 surgeries and not a day goes by that I don't feel every single one of them. And again, all the injuries that I've had over my life playing sports or just out of accidents, it's like I feel them all. I feel all 3 knee surgeries, my clavicle, my finger, like I feel them all. And so I get it. And so I'm happy to make things safer. And it's never going to be fully safe. I know how other people are always, well, you know what? This is football, this is what they sign up for, etc., etc. And it's like, some of that is true, but some of that is also kind of like, you're missing the forest for the trees. And so if you could make a compelling argument that the tush push is legitimately dangerous and that it is just a matter of time, whether it's going to be next year or 5 years from now, that when someone truly does get injured, it's over. Like, it's just, they're either just gone, paralyzed, whatever. Then it's just like, you just don't want to see it. But, again, if you disagree with that, I encourage you to at least counter it with more of like, well, someone can, get their head knocked off, when you're catching a ball in the middle of the field, or like on a punt return, or like, because we know all of that stuff can happen too. There's plenty of times that you see hits and you're just like, oh God, right? And like Tua Tagovailoa recently, you're just like, oh my God, like that's a tough thing to watch when you see Tua's fingers like seized up and stuff like that, especially like that first time that it happened. Like, I had a moment where I was just like, dude, this does not feel good watching this game at all. Or obviously with with the Buffalo Bills and heart no longer beating, like those are things that you have to reconcile with. But something feels amiss with all of this, because if it was just about the fear of someone really just getting a devastating injury, like that would be what every single representative of the NFL would be saying. That's what the coaching staffs would be saying, the owners, like, I don't know. So that's why all of this just kind of continues to feel weird. And listen, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how successful you are in terms of like a business, like the NFL is a business, whether you're Amazon, NFL, whatever, like they still make plenty of mistakes. They still come out with press conferences or statements, and their CEOs get caught doing like crazy, ridiculous stuff. So because on one side I'm kind of like, it's the NFL, like they would be able to construct, high quality arguments, and again, you would have a media blitz. Like, it would be very easy to just let this all know. Again, First Take would be talking about it, Get Up would be talking about it, Colin Cowherd, First Things For, it would be every single show would be like, this is such a dangerous play. And then they would start to have like neurotrauma experts and, and some guy from John Hopkins explaining the gravitational forces and this and that. And like, they would come up with all the, it would be like pretty easy to do, quite frankly, when you're talking about all the money and power that, and the reach that the NFL has, especially when they're all in, it's one big giant party with the NFL and Fox and NBC and all that. They're all in it together. They all understand, hey, we're all buddies, right? We're all part of the same team. We're all trying to, make this as popular as possible and make as much money. At the end of the day, we just want to make as much money as possible. So the fact that we're not getting that is what makes me then be like, I don't know. It's it's a weird situation. And that's why I wanted to read what he wrote, because I'm like, okay, it's thought provoking, and I do think that there can be a lot of truth to that. And if that is true, why does it feel like the NFL's actions are not based off of that? Because you have someone like me who's kind of like, it's ridiculous, don't ban it, don't ban it, don't ban it. And then I see that argument and I go, okay. I'm significantly more open to banning it. I'm the type of person where I'm like, well, I kind of want to do my due diligence. Like, is what you're saying accurate? Let me kind of do my own research. Let me reach out to other people. Let me see, etc., etc. But I'm like, okay, you've opened that door for me, and I have like 10 videos being like, this is ridiculous. Don't ban it, right? So if that's convinced me, it's certainly going to convince other people as well. So then, like, why isn't the NFL taking that angle? That's why like it just this whole thing feels weird to me. And so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Like I said, I encourage you all to try to go beyond the idea of it just being like the NFL is out to get the Eagles or the other teams are out to get the Eagles. Listen, do I think some of the teams like want that? You know, like, do I think like the Packers want it gone because they know it's hard to defend and they're not really caring about the health of other players? Sure. But the big thing is that the NFL wants it. Apparently, Roger Goodell wants it gone. And it's just like, why? That's what I want to know. Is it because he fundamentally thinks it's boring? Does he really think it's dangerous? If he thought it was dangerous, I remain that that's what all of these guys would be talking about. It would be blitzed with that. So if he is, I don't think he has an issue against the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, something else is going on. I just don't know what it is, and I don't think it's like a conspiracy. I don't think it's it's a conspiracy. They're not out to get Philly. Philly brings in the NFL a mass amount of money. The Philadelphia Eagles are a massive marketplace, massive franchise. You know, the teams like the Philadelphia Eagles are a cash cow, and they're way more consistent than even the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Right? You know, there's a great chance that when Mahomes is gone and Andy's gone, Kansas City Chiefs, you're like, oh, what are they? When are they going to be competitive next? You know, or even under the best, look at their parade when they won Super Bowls, compare it to the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowls. Even when the Kansas City Chiefs are in their prime, they're still not even close to the ratings and the money that the Philadelphia Eagles bring in. So it's just like, it's not like the NFL is trying to like push out Philadelphia. Like, they know money is money, right? Money talks. So it's like, I don't think there's like some conspiracy, but then that's what's been so frustrating about this, because you hear, oh, well, it's boring. Oh, it's against the rules. Oh, it's dangerous. Oh, it's too automatic. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. And it's like, what is the actual source of all of this? You know, what is the root of all of this? And then again, and this will be my last point, is that it really is two completely different conversations. The idea of banning it, and it's like, okay, let's talk about that. And then also, if the Eagles don't have the tush push, what does that mean for them as a team? Right? You know, will it hurt them? Sure, because it's been a part of their playbook for years now, and it obviously has helped them, but will it hurt them in a way that, like, it's like they were a Super Bowl contender in the last couple of years with the tush push, and now take away the tush push, they're somehow not a Super Bowl contender? I've seen some comments like that, and it's just like, I don't say this, you know, very loosely, but, because I really don't, I try not to overuse this, but it's like, those are clown comments. Those, it's just like, you don't know. I always respect the fans in the comments, and that's why I'm always all up in there, and it's always like, let's get in discussions and stuff like that. But like, when you make statements like that, it's just like, you just don't know what you're talking about, because they literally won a Super Bowl in 2017 with zero tush push. So it's just like, it's just, that take will always be bonkers. But yeah, it's a weird conversation, quite frankly. And it just doesn't feel like we have all the answers. And honestly, it seems like everybody kind of wants it banned for a different reason more than anything. So we'll see. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles? And kind of the reasoning why the tush push will probably be banned, as well as how do you think it will impact the Philadelphia Eagles? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here. I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.